Tuesday, September 16th is an important day in the city of Douglasville. The voters will decide whether or not the city police department has a modern facility so that it can more effectively and efficiently serve this community, or whether the police department will have to continue to operate in inadequate substandard facilities. Today I'll be talking with longtime City Police Chief Joe Whisenant, and I hope you will join me for that conversation on the agenda. This is City Manager Bill Osborne, and today on the agenda, my special guest is a man that most of our viewers already know. He's a longtime police chief of the city of Douglasville, Joe Whisenant, and we're here today for one last discussion about a very important issue, namely the new public safety and municipal court building. There will be a vote on Tuesday, September 16th. September 16th, the voters will go to the polls and decide whether or not they will authorize the city to go forward with construction of a new municipal court public safety building. Chief, I know you have been working on this for a long time, and I know as we get in the home stretch, you're looking at what else might be done to make sure that we encourage people to go to the polls and vote so that we can have these needed facilities for the police department.
Absolutely, and first of all, let me thank you for having me on the agenda today. This is a topic that's near and dear to all of us at the police department particularly, and we are in fact getting down to the nitty-gritty, the 11th hour, and it's very important to us that we get this information out to the people, the taxpayers, the voters, concerned citizens, and get them to the polls, and hopefully they'll cast a yes vote for us.
Right. And just briefly for our voters that are watching, registered voters in the city, Tuesday, September 16th, very important issue. You will make the decision on whether or not the city will be able to issue general obligation bonds to finance the construction of the public safety and municipal court building. And Chief, just tell us briefly, what will this mean to not only your department, but also to citizens and businesses in this community?
Well, Bill, first of all, for the citizen standpoint, it's going to greatly increase our effectiveness and our efficiency. Also, right now, being scattered all over town, it's very hard for us to offer the services, particularly when somebody comes to the police station and needing something. We believe that this new building is going to greatly enhance our capabilities of serving the public.
Right. And before we get into details, just want to take a minute or so for you. As I say, you've been chief here for more than 25 years, head of law enforcement in the city of Douglasville. So just from your heart, tell me what the importance of this thing is.
Okay. As I said, this is something that's near and dear to me and to all the officers at the department. When I was appointed police chief over 25 years ago, I made a pledge to the mayor and council then and to the citizens that I'd do everything I could to enhance the quality and professionalism of our law enforcement agency. And I think with the help of the elected officials and certainly the help of some great officers, we've been able to provide that. However, we have been hamstrung tremendously by the facilities that we have as we've grown. We've just kind of hodgepodged here around town, bought buildings that were never intended to be police stations, changed the locks, threw a little paint on the walls, called them a police station. So, you know, I have never in my 25 years come to the voters and asked them for anything. I'm kind of a low-key kind of guy. You know, I expect our officers to go out and do their job day in and day out and give service, and this is what we do. But I am here asking the voters and the citizens to please give consideration to our needs at the police department for this building, and not only for what we need to, as police officers, but also it will, like, as I said, it will enhance our ability to serve them better also. And we spent a lot of time, and I know we're going to talk about that later, in preparation and planning for this building. It's not something that we took lightly, and I think we've come up with something that's great. And you know, again, just asking the voters to please come out and cast a positive vote for us.
Right, and I agree with you. Of course, this is not something that was put together quickly. A lot of work went into it, and we're going to talk about the cost of this facility. This is not a small project. We're talking about meeting the needs not only of the police department and the municipal court at this time, but looking ahead for 20 years as to what would be needed to serve this community. And I know from your standpoint of your command staff, is that your initial responsibility here was to quantify what your current needs are and what your projected needs are, so that then the architectural engineering firm had the responsibility of how do you fit that into a building, what would be included, and of course that was done. But just give us a thumbnail sketch on how you and your officers went about deciding here's what we need now and here's what we need down the road.
Well, we've met over about a 3-month period, probably 15 or 20 times with the architectural firm, starting out with just basics, where we are now and where we want to go. As you said, the goal was all along that we do this with 20 years in the future. We don't ever want to have to come back and tell the citizens, hey, we need more room, we need more money. This is a one-shot deal.
Right.
So with that in mind, we would meet, we'd go over some plans, talk about some ideas. Of course, these people were well versed. They do public safety buildings for a living. So they had some ideas and some expertise from prior projects. We had our own ideas, but the way we want our department to work. So, you know, we mesh these ideas, and they go back and they come up with a set of drawings. Me and my command staff, we mull it over for 2, 3, 4 days, look at it, sleep on it, look at it, chew it for a while, sleep on that, and then come back, and we kept meeting and finally came up with what we consider a great floor plan for our police department and municipal court building.
Right. And I know when you were doing this, one thing that you were not concerned about with the firm, at least at that time, was where the building might be placed.
That's correct.
But now we know where it will be placed, so tell us about that.
Well, the elected officials decided to buy a piece of land, an adequate piece of land, south of I-20 on Fairburn Road, right before you get to the bowling alley. It's on the right. It's 22 acres of vacant land right now, and it's more than adequate. We're going to put the police station in the back part of it, allowing some room up front for possible sales to help recoup the cost of the land, which I think is probably some pretty good thinking on the elected officials' part. So we're excited about that. We intend to build to leave the #1 police station, the oldest police station, the old building there at the corner of Church and Courthouse Square West, Bowden. I'm sorry, it's Courthouse East Square in Bowden, and keep a precinct there for the downtown area. That's been a concern of a lot of people that not only live here, but businesses also, about vacating. So we've addressed that also, and we're going to have a precinct here in town.
Right, that's good. You know, I guess as you and I have been around in the community, I don't know that we've had anybody to ask us, well now, the land where you're going to put the station, is that included as part of this project on your financing? I don't remember being asked that question. What we have been asked is, why is the ballot on September 16th say that this is a referendum for $23 million when we had first talked about a $17 million facility? How did it increase by $6 million? And I want to address that on this program, because I think that is a good logical question that some people have asked, and I think there's a good sound answer to that. And let me just tell you that the major factors involved here is that first, when we had the needs assessment done in March of 2007, they initially thought we needed about a 53,000 square foot building. As those needs were refined and looked at, that increased by an additional 3,000 square feet up to 56,000. All of this was before a site was selected. Once the site was selected and we looked at the topography of it, recognized that we were going to need to look at a basement level for the building, looked at what we might shift down in the basement in terms of your needs, but also looked at what we would have in terms of storage facilities. And so it increased to 63,000 square feet, and the additional cost on that was like $1.9 million. And then as we looked at the basement level, we recognized that actually there's another 7,000 square feet that we can put in the basement level for future use, and can do that unfinished at this point for less than $500,000. And that gives us for the future 70,000 square feet in this building, which will serve the needs that we're looking at, but also accommodates to the building site that we would have. So that's 1.9 million more. Then from a site standpoint, when they did the work with you to start with, of course we didn't know where the building was going to be. They simply arbitrarily put in a figure of 1.9 million for site work. Well, we know that the site preparations are going to be more than that. We've got a couple of utilities that we've got to go across and deal with easements on that with Plantation Pipeline. The building is going to look stately, I think, but it's not up close to Fairburn Road. It sits back, so it's going to cost more for the entry. Altogether, rather than 1.9 million for site improvements, it's going to be closer to 3.9 million. And so that's a $2 million increase from that standpoint. Also, when they did the needs assessment, they were just looking at, okay, what are your needs? They were not looking at the construction, so it didn't include a contingency fund.
Correct.
And of course, any major building project you're going to do, wisdom says you need a contingency fund. And so we have a $1.2 million contingency fund that we've built in now. You know, I think both of us can say we're sure that we're going to do all we can to make sure that this building is built using as little of that contingency fund as possible, but it's prudent to have it. But that's an added cost. Also, if you look at the firm in saying, okay, here are your figures in June of '08, you're not going to start the construction until early '09. Inflation will come to place, come to pass in that. And so they put almost $1 million from an inflationary standpoint between when they gave us the plans earlier this summer looking to start a construction. And then if you realize that $17 million figure was given to us in March of '07, and here we had about 16 months before we got the final plans, and you had inflationary factors there. So if you put all that together, it's pretty logical to see how these costs increase from the 17 million up to the 23 million. Wondered if you have any comments on that, or you want to say, well, you did a good job, Mr. City Manager, let's just keep going.
Well, you did a good job explaining it, and as you said, the final price that we got is more expensive than we thought. But
right.
I think the additions and the explanation is there. There's nothing hidden in here.
Right.
It's not like we're trying to run some kind of a shell game on everybody. It's a building that's going to be very efficient, effective, and it's going to be something, again, that's going to be there for our use for 20 years without having to come back and ask for more
right.
money. And I think it's going to be money well spent. Do I think it's going to cost us that total $23 million? No, sir. We've talked about that. Like you say, there are contingencies put in there.
Right.
We're going to be very frugal and prudent in the spending. I don't believe we're going to need all that contingency. It's very wise to have it.
Right.
In case something comes up. But we spent a lot of time in the pre-planning to avoid
right.
those kinds of things. So
right.
I think we've done a real good job on it,
right.
Bill.
And you know, and if the voters do approve this on September 16th, then of course what the city will do over the next weeks after that is take the necessary steps so the bonds can be sold, so that we get the proceeds from the bonds and can get ready to start construction. The bonds will be repaid over a 20-year period, and what we are talking about is a 1.1 mil tax increase that would not start until the fall of 2009. Now, just to our taxpayers that are watching, of course you know that your property taxes are are based on 40% of appraised value. And so what does 1.1 mil mean? Well, basically, if your house is appraised at $100,000, we're talking about a $44 increase. That's all.
That's per year.
Per year.
Per year, not per month.
That's right, per year. And if it's appraised at $150,000, then your annual increase we're talking about would be $66. If your house is appraised at $250,000, then your increase on an annual basis would be only $110. And if your house is appraised at $350,000, then we're talking about a $154 increase. So I think when most of the people look at those figures, they're going to say that, hey, you know, this really is a good value for what we will get from this in terms of increased efficiency and effectiveness with our police department. And I think most people will say this is a wise investment for the future. But you've taken a step to help reduce this burden a little bit. Namely, you've committed $5 million out of drug funds. Tell us about that.
Well, as a lot of you all know, that we do have an asset forfeiture fund that's where we seize money or items and we sell it. It's to be used for police department for enhancements. And I have pledged $5 million. I think it's important that I step up to the plate in this venture also to show our commitment from the police department to the citizens. So yes, we have, and we intend to keep that commitment.
We appreciate that too.
I'm sure you do.
Over at City Hall, and you know, and of course we've calculated all of that in determining what we need to look at from property taxes to make this entire thing work effectively. We're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, the Chief and I will be talking about the planned new building and the problems with our current buildings.
Hi, I'm James Gribble, and my City TV is streaming 24/7.
Get up and get groovy. Kid, what's up with you? Let's get up and play. Do something. Stop slumping like a lump all day. Get on up, come on. Get out the door. Let's shake that booty like never before. Let's run, have fun. Let's jump and groove. Get up and get that body up. Make it move.
Get up, and be a player. Get up.
Woo. Let's run, have fun. Get up and be a player.
Get up and play an hour a day.
Ouch! Sorry. For cool playtime ideas, go online. Just don't stay long.
At this time, Chief, just tell me about the planned building.
Bill, it's going to be a two-story all brick building with a basement in it.
Right.
The basement's going to house different functions in the police department, and also it's going to have a 7,000 square foot area that we're not going to finish out, but for future expansion. The first floor, ground level, of course, will have a lobby where citizens can come in and conduct business. We'll have our records and our court division there, where if they need to come in and either business with either one of those, they'll have a very nice, safe, clean atmosphere to do that. It'll be a one-stop shop type situation. Also, we'll have the municipal court on that floor, the patrol division, IT, SWAT will be there, a couple small other divisions, but generally it will be the basic floor where the citizens will come in and be able to conduct their business.
Right.
Whereas now, if you come to either talk with an officer or maybe get a report, make a report, oftentimes you have to go to 2 or 3 different buildings here in town, and it's very inconvenient for the citizens to be in one building and say, oh yeah, but to finish up here you got to go over to another building and it's inclement weather. So that'll be the first floor. Second floor will be housed with the Detective Bureau, training, traffic, SROs, and of course administration.
Right. And of course, we're not talking about this $23 million just providing you an empty building.
Oh, no,
so
no.
tell us about what's going to be in the building.
Well, I'm sorry, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Of course, that will include all of our furniture, fixtures, equipment, computers. It'll be a turnkey operation.
Right.
That's carpet, it's the tile, it's whatever we need for the day that we open for business. We'll be ready to go. So there are no hidden costs that we got to come up with later for certain things. It's a turnkey, guaranteed maximum price situation.
And unlike what our citizens experience at this time, in addition to trying to figure out which of our 7 buildings downtown they go to, they got to try to figure out where do you park. But on this new building, that won't be a problem. So tell us about what's going to be on the grounds, both in parking and some other buildings and so forth.
Okay, of course it'll be landscaped nice. It's going to be a beautiful building,
Right.
and it needs to look that too.
Yes.
When you're spending $23 million, you need to look like you got a $23 million building.
Right.
Out front area will be adequate parking for the public to come in, park at one spot, be able to walk up a sidewalk into the front of the building and go in. In the back will be a secured area for employees to park, something we don't have now, even for our patrol cars.
Right.
We will have some outbuildings for some evidence storage, washing of vehicles. We'll have a sally port that will hook on, which will enhance our ability to bring prisoners in and out in a safe place for them and for the police officers. Also, something that we don't have now.
Right. You even plan to take better care of the dogs.
Absolutely, got a little area for the dogs. We shade and give them some water. Where now we have to take them even to a different location. I'm not going to tell anybody where that is, but
Right.
we have to take them to a different location if an officer has to drop his dog off for any extended period of time. It'll also be secure for them.
Right. And as I mentioned earlier, that assuming the voters approve this on September 16th, we're looking at starting construction early in 2009. I'm sure you and all of your officers are looking forward to being able to do that groundbreaking.
Yeah, you see the grin on my face when you talk about it in anticipation of groundbreaking and getting that pretty shovel that, you know, with my name on it, maybe a hard hat too, because you know I'm going to be down on that project every day making sure they're doing it exactly like I want it done. But we're excited. It's something that's been a long time needed, and I've been promised this for years and years and years, and I can really see it coming to fruition now.
That's great. To all of our viewers, our voters, let me just remind you, polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September the 16th. We're talking about registered voters who live inside the city of Douglasville. Now, if you live outside the city of Douglasville and you want to be supportive of this project, that's great, but certainly the voters in Douglasville will be making the decision on this. If you live in Ward 5, and of course that's the subdivisions, Chapel Hills, Saddlebrook, Grace Lake, Charlton Crossing, Rolling Hills, and most of Arbor Station, you'll be voting at the Arbor Station Elementary School. Now, if you live on the north side or in part of the downtown area in Ward 3, then you will be voting at Stewart Middle School. For everybody else in the city, you'll be voting at the old Douglas County Courthouse in downtown Douglasville. Now, if you're not sure of which polling place you need to go to, or if you have any questions concerning the election, let me encourage you to call the Douglas County Registrar's Office, Laura Fulton, because the city contracts with her office to run the elections for us, and she'll be able to answer your questions. And also, of course, you can do early voting and you can do absentee voting. So please look into that so that you don't miss this opportunity of expressing your opinion on this matter. Chief, as somebody who's been here a long time now, what do you want to say to the voters now that we've got their attention?
Couple things, Bill. First of all, anybody that wants to take a tour of our existing facilities and look at our plans and talk to me, ask questions about what we've got planned, please come up to the police station. We'll be glad to spend some time with you. If you want to make a phone call to us to set up a time, 770-920-3021. Ask for myself or Deputy Chief Chris Womack. We'll make ourselves available to you. We'll spend whatever time. You know, if you got questions, if you got reservations about it, if you don't think we really need it, trust me, if you come up and look at the inadequate facilities that we have now, I think you'll walk away saying, I don't know how these guys and gals have worked in these facilities as long as they have and may do.
Right. Well, the preliminary plans, of course, that we received a few weeks ago were prepared by a firm from Smyrna, the Facility Group, and they were selected by the City Council after a rather detailed and lengthy process. And unknown to the City of Douglasville at the time they were selected and started work was the fact that there was some major legal problems that the Facility Group had. And actually during the weeks that we were working with some well-qualified and dedicated men and women who did the preliminary plans and worked very effectively with us. The management of the facility group was pretty well directed on trying to deal with these major legal problems that they have. You know, there are four things that I want to say to our viewers as to where we are in early September in this matter. First is that the plans that we got from the facility group are a good set of plans. We've reviewed them. We've had our inspections department to review them. We feel like that we've got excellent preliminary plans to proceed with. We've paid the facility for these plans. Second is that most of the people that we dealt with in the selection process and certainly in the development of these plans no longer are with the facility group. They've left that firm and now have gone to work for another firm. The third is that at this time, the city does not have any business it's doing with the facility group. In fact, we're not having any contact with them because they've completed what we needed from them at this time. And fourth, we hope that on September 16th, the voters will approve the referendum, and then the city will be in a position of saying we need to move forward with this project. And we will then look to see how we do proceed, and we'll want to be sure that we're dealing with people that we can have confidence in, that we can trust, that we can be confident that we will get a good product, and we'll be looking at all of that and making decisions on that. But the main thing that I want to give you that report on where we are at this time, and also wanted, of course, to encourage you to come out to the polls and vote on September 16th. And the chief had mentioned our existing buildings and the fact that if you really want to make a final determination as to whether or not the need is there, to please contact him, Deputy Chief Womack, to do this. But let's talk just a little bit about some of the inadequacies of your current buildings, because I think that you and I and the elected officials and all your officers feel like that if we could just show people what we've got now, they'd say, why have you waited so long to do this? Tell us a little bit about the deficiencies.
Well, first of all, and probably foremost, is the lack of security in our buildings, Bill. As we stated earlier, none of them were designed to be police stations. And of course, you know, 15 years ago, security in a public building, and particularly a police station, maybe wasn't quite as important as it is now. But, you know, whether it's the civilian people in the building conducting business or whether it's our staff, right now, we just offer no security. It's very dangerous for them.
Right.
You know, chances are something may never happen, but if it should, we have no way of preventing people from moving freely within our building, from office to office, to do whatever they want to do. So that's a major concern of mine. Number two is just cramped quarters. We got people jammed up on top of each other. Number three, we got inadequate wiring in a lot of these buildings. We're just maxed out. We couldn't add, literally, we couldn't add a coffee maker in some of the buildings that it won't just short out the building. And I'm not being facetious when I say that, it's the truth. We've got leaky roofs, we've got constant repairs going on. It's just, you know, we've outlived that kind of a mindset for what we need in a city like Douglasville to provide the services that we need to provide.
Right, I agree with that. And, you know, in addition to saying people can make contact with you, come by to look at these, even though time's getting short, if we've got an organization, civic club, neighborhood group that want you or the deputy chief to come out, you're ready and willing, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Just contact us at the same number I gave you. We'll send either myself or he will come out with some other folks. We've got the plans. We make ourselves available to answer questions. Once again, we have nothing to hide. I think when the people hear us and see what we're doing, they will they'll walk away with a good feeling about what's going on.
Right. Well, I appreciate you being with me today.
I appreciate
you know, I'm counting on Wednesday, September the 17th, with you and the men and women who serve so ably the citizens of this community through our police department to have big smiles on your faces, and for us to be looking at how we move on from here. But Chief, appreciate you being here again today.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
This is Bill Osborne, City Manager in Douglasville. I want to remind you that our City Council meets on the first and third Mondays in each month at 7:30 p.m. at City Hall. There's a legislative work session the preceding Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. at City Hall. We welcome the public. There's always the opportunity for the public to speak during these meetings. But if you can't come to the meetings and you want to keep up with what's going on, catch us on City TV. Don't forget on Tuesday, September 16th to go to the polls and vote on this important issue, and encourage your friends and neighbors to do the same. Thank you for joining us today. This is Bill Osborne signing off for this edition of On the Agenda.